Hello, and welcome to Women Speak, a production of the Women's Resource Center in Wayne. I'm your host, Mojda Keika, and in each episode, I focus on a topic that is of interest to women and the people they care for. This interview is being conducted via Zoom during the coronavirus crisis 2022 on MLTV Mainline Network. Today, Women Speak is honored to talk with Kristy Olinger, an organizational development consultant for the Consumer Bank at Citizens Bank. She is responsible for defining and leading learning and development strategy tied to talent management, leadership and executive development, performance management, and colleague engagement. Kristy also leads the colleague pillar of the Women's Impact Network, or WIN, at Citizens Bank, a business resource group dedicated to helping women thrive. Kristy has over 20 years of experience in the banking industry, primarily in credit card strategy, including co-brand development, product strategy, and product development. Since 2009, Kristy has led workshops that help professionals to communicate better at work. She also hosts a bi-weekly podcast called The Opposite of Small Talk for mid-career professionals interested in self-development. Kristy, I am happy that you are joining Women Speak today and that we will be discussing the Women's Impact Network at Citizens Bank. Welcome.
Mojda, thank you so much for having me. I love that this platform even exists, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, it's great that you can be on today. And I was wondering if we could start with a definition of WIN, or the Women's Impact Network at Citizens Bank, and how it got started.
Absolutely. I mean, WIN, what a great acronym, right? WIN, Women's Impact Network. It is a business resource group. And so what that means is that it's a voluntary group that is company sponsored and is really designed to help our colleagues and our culture to just continuously improve. So it's one of 6 groups, and this group is focused on women. So our mission is really to engage, empower, and inspire women to thrive. And when we say women, we don't just mean the colleagues or employees of Citizens. We mean the women in our community and our female clients, really all around. So we've got about 1,900 members, and 100 of them are men, which is good to note. We've got some male allyship in there as well. And, really, we're just, out here doing programs that are helping women to thrive.
And so how did you get started in WIN and at Citizens Bank?
Yeah, so I joined Citizens in 2019, and I had had some experience with a prior bank with similar organizations. And what I found is that there's such a great way to meet people and network and build skills. And so one of the first things I did probably in the first month of joining Citizens was to look up what kinds of business resource groups were available and just talk to some folks and, become a part of it. So I reached out to the person who was my predecessor, colleague pillar leader. Her name is Kim. She's also local, and just said, hey, I want to get involved, and how can I help? And ironically, they were looking for support in evaluating external speakers. And because I have experience as a speaker myself, I was in a unique position to evaluate these proposals that we were getting for external speakers. So that's where I started, and then moved into a leadership role last year. And it's just been a really great experience. I would say for people who are watching that might be members of a company, check into what is available to you, because these business resource groups really are very valuable experiences to have.
And so what is your involvement today in WIN? You mentioned that you have taken a leadership position in that organization, in that business resource group.
Yeah, that's right. So in January of last year, 2021, I stepped into what we call the colleague pillar leader role. And really that just means my focus is on our Citizens colleagues and driving programs that are going to support them. And, the way we think about it is that our members are really the ones that are going to dictate what that looks like based on what their needs are. So my job is to listen to the membership. We have a committee of about 50 folks who are phenomenal rock stars, but their primary job is to listen to the women in their network about what's happening, what they need, what they're feeling, and bring that back to a monthly group discussion that we have to deliver programs. So that could look like mentorship and networking. It could look like hard skill building. It could look a variety of different ways. Again, it all just sort of goes back to and ladders up to that mission of engaging, empowering, and inspiring these women.
So the studies have shown that engagement among employees leads to much greater productivity in the workplace. And I was curious, what are some of the goals of WIN in the Citizens Bank workplace?
Well, it's interesting that you teed up the question that way. This is absolutely part of the broader DE&I strategy in creating a culture of inclusivity and helping people to bring their whole selves to work. And one of the things that we saw when I stepped into this role in 2021 was that people were really craving connection with each other more so than anything else. We had a long history of delivering a lot of programming, which were all phenomenal, external speakers and skill building and those kinds of things. But I think, there's a little bit of fatigue that goes on with all these Zoom sessions that we're having to hear from experts. And people just wanted to be able to talk to each other and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How are you handling it? And being more connected in that way. So one of our goals is really just to create more connection with each other. And so we've done that by taking this huge WIN organization and deploying sort of a regionalized strategy and also a special interest strategy. So how can we create little pockets of people that happen to be in the same geographies is one thing. But then also, what about people who just have an interest in something and want to be in the same space? So women in technology is a great example where we found we had some really strong WIN members that just wanted to talk to other women in technology and create community with each other. And so we're sort of supporting that piece as well. So when you think about goals, creating connection really has been the big one for us. I mentioned that we have male allies as well. And I think that's a space where we've got a lot of men who really want to support our mission, but just need help with how, like, what does that actually look like? So I think one of the things that we're trying to focus on, we've always included men in our membership and encouraged them to participate in the programming. I think going forward, we may do a little bit more targeted conversations and interactions around what does that actually look like to be a male ally at work? And that could be something as simple as if you see a woman interrupted, make sure that you're, calling that out in a meeting and circling back to them. So some really tactical things. Let's put that in the hands of these male allies who have been just such great advocates for our mission.
That is an amazing initiative to have combined with the WIN network, but it makes complete sense. You've spoken about some of the WIN objectives in the community. Can you talk more to that?
Yeah, so I have a peer leader who is focused completely on the community aspect of what we do in WIN. And really, we build strategic alliances with community groups that are inside of our footprint. And we support them through things like volunteerism. And we see this as such a phenomenal thing. Again, back to this idea of creating connection. Nothing can connect us better than doing a service project together, and it supports our community as well. So we see that as just a win-win-win across the board. Some of the groups that we've worked with are Dress for Success, Girls Who Code, the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Those are just a few of them. But really, we try to find partnerships with organizations that align with our mission and then serve them in the ways that they need.
Can you give some more examples of the projects of WIN, both in the workplace and the community?
Yeah, I would say one of the workplace projects that I thought was pretty unique this past year was a leadership training that we did for our colleague committee. It was a 30-day digital challenge. It was hosted by a gentleman by the name of Allah Hunkins. He's a leadership expert. He has an amazing TED Talk. And he facilitated this program that was really helpful in the sense that it was 5 or less minutes a day that you did through an app on your phone whenever it was convenient for you. And it gave you a little bit of learning about leadership and a way to practice that learning, and then combined it with a social aspect. Again, it all goes back to feeling connected to each other, so that our committee could cheer each other on with the things that they were practicing and how they were succeeding in those elements. So I thought that was a really unique initiative, and I could see us potentially doing a little bit more of that. I think it really leans into what we're seeing in terms of a shift of how people are learning. Back to that idea of it's hard for people to take an appointment-based program and spend an hour away from their desk doing a training or a speaker event. Having something that's on their phone that they can just do when they have a few minutes of time is really valuable and impactful, because it's that repetition that helps us to learn a little bit better. So I would say that's probably the most unique project that we delivered in the workplace.
Well, it's been said that if you don't practice what you learn, it becomes quickly part of your forgetfulness, and then it's so important to be able to connect also with people in the workplace through this app, through this shared venture. So that was a very interesting example. What are some of the career benefits to women who are members of WIN?
So I love this question because it has a lot of layers. And as with anything in life, what you get out of it is oftentimes directly related to how much you're putting into it, right? So you have to decide if it's something that you're going to spend the time engaging with or not. At the baseline, if you're just a member of WIN, of the membership at large, of course, you'll have access to the programs that we're running, whether that's a mentoring program or networking or a speaker event or a discussion group. You'll have access and get communications about what is there and available to you. I think networking is one of the benefits of BRG membership that is very helpful, in particular for our introverted friends. We know that networking is critical to your success at work, building relationships, understanding how things are working, but people struggle to network independently. It can be hard to reach out to someone and say, hey, I just want to meet you and learn about what you do. It's much more natural if you're working on a project together or you're at an event together to meet someone and get to know them. So building your network is one of those things where it kind of gives you an entryway to do that with people that you wouldn't come across in your day job. You've got people from all different areas of the bank that are involved in this BRG. So the third thing I would say is skill building. So if you are willing to get a little bit more involved, maybe you want to run a program or, do something more material, join a committee, it gives you a chance to build a skill that maybe is not part of your day job, but you have an interest in. So can you put yourself in a place in one of these BRGs to test out your skills in an area? And I think that's a really under-considered component. Some of us are in jobs that we don't love and we'd like to navigate our way to somewhere else, but we don't really know how we're going to demonstrate that we have the ability. Joining a BRG and finding a way to practice those skills in a very real way is just a phenomenal opportunity to kind of get you into that other role that maybe you are more aligned with your interest and skill sets. So that is the hidden gem of value of BRGs that I think people don't always recognize, but is very, very real.
Well, you've combined the pragmatic with the professional in the pursuit of someone's career goals. So that sounds like a win to me.
Absolutely.
And how do you relate WIN to some of the broader women's issues today?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I really lean heavily into feedback and input from our membership and our community and our colleagues. So gathering that voice of colleague for me as the colleague pillar leader is really the number one thing. What are people hearing, feeling, thinking, doing? But I will say we also leverage resources, external resources. McKinsey would be a great example to understand what the broader landscape looks like. So for International Women's Day, we're actually hosting a discussion group with 3 executive female leaders. And the way we selected the topics that we would discuss was to evaluate these stats around women in work and what they're dealing with in this moment. And then we bounced those off our actual members to see which ones of them resonated the most and where did they want to hear more information. So it is a combination of, getting the unique perspectives of our members, but then also looking to the world at large and what's happening more globally to source the ideas as well.
That's fascinating. Also, very much to do with connection and 360 feedback, actually, because you're eliciting the interests of the members to bring them back to skill development in speaker series and networking.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, Moshe, like our entire mission is about helping them to thrive. So they need to be at the center of everything that we do. And that's really what that's about, is listening to their voice first and foremost.
And speaking about thriving, can you describe an example of how WIN is changing your professional career?
Well, this is a great question for me personally in this moment, because I actually just made a really big career transition, and I attribute a piece of that to WIN. So I've spent most of my career working in the credit card division of the banks where I've worked, working on strategy and product development. And I've loved my job there. But I've always had this passion for developing others. I host the podcast, The Opposite of Small Talk, which is all about development. And I've always had an interest in helping to develop others. And so I had this thought of, well, what if that was my job, was to develop others? And so I decided to start having conversations with the people that worked in HR in our organization. And I applied for and secured a role in organizational development. And I really believe that one of the reasons they were willing to take a bet on me, someone who, doesn't have any sort of academic credentials in HR, was the fact that I had done so much with WIN and demonstrated my ability to develop that organization that absolutely played a role into getting that job. So, I mean, the timing of your question is just so relevant because this literally happened within the last couple of months. But really, it's been my whole career is doing this side work of development that's been such a passion of mine. But that's a very tangible example of practicing a skill set in a low risk environment and being able to prove myself and then leveraging that to get to the next place. So that's what we're talking about when we say, skill building as one of the outcomes of being involved with a BRG.
Well, it sounds like you certainly put in the hours and the effort, and you have the experience, considering all of the things that you were doing with WIN, to apply for that and to feel confident that that was something you wanted to do and you would be seen as experienced and relevant to what citizens needs at the time. So that's pretty fascinating, that nexus, how that came together.
Yeah.
And I would also like to ask you, Kristy, what are some of the WIN goals going forward? How does the Business Resource Group see itself going forward into the future?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of take you back to the goals that we've always had, which is, again, creating that connection and community. It really is a part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, these BRG groups. And so making sure that we are creating the spaces for people to bring their whole selves to work, to talk about the issues that are important, to kind of address anything that needs to be addressed. But first and foremost, just to be like a welcoming place for women in banking. And so I think that's really the overall piece. How we get there looks different every time, and it really evolves with what our members are saying, which is what makes the work so much fun.
That's great. That is really amazing. All the things that were tied into WIN and your professional development and your ability to take that next step with confidence, knowing that you have a network of women at the bank and you have your own image of what you want to do in the future. All of that combined is amazing. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Yeah.
well, I would say again to anyone listening, if you're part of a larger company, like seek out these kinds of groups. It may not be called a business resource group, or even if it's outside of your organization, just getting involved is, is such a value in ways that you can't anticipate until you get there. So I would say, take a chance and get involved with a group of people to create some community for yourself.
Sounds like wonderful advice. Thank you for that, Kristy. And thank you for being here on Women Speak today, for sharing your knowledge about the Women's Impact Network at Citizens Bank. You certainly gave us a lot of insight. To our viewers, thank you for watching Women Speak. To learn more about the Women's Resource Center, please visit our website, womensresourcecenter.net. I look forward to bringing you more in-depth conversations in future episodes.